I'm Anna Sheftel, principal of the School of Community and Public Affairs.
And I'm Hana Sharafati Zangane, a student at the school.
And welcome to La Grande Histoire d'une Petite École.
Okay, wonderful. So first of all, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and telling me your name and your role.
Sure. My name is Jawad Hussain Qureshi. I work as a senior South Asia analyst at the Privy Council office in the Government of Canada. The Privy Council office is the department of the Prime Minister. So I work under the National Security and Intelligence Advisors within one of her secretariats, looking at what I jokingly, well, it is really a quarter of humanity. So Afghanistan to Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, to Maldives and India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, everything in between. So I'm looking at that part of the world for senior officials in the federal government and writing for them, advising them, briefing them. And I've been here for 15 years.
That sounds very cool. And if I understand correctly, you were a student at the School of Community and Public Affairs?
Indeed. I graduated in 2003 from SPGA, if I'm remembering the acronym.
SCPA, yeah.
SCPA, sorry, my bad. Yeah. SCPA. I was there. I did the graduate diploma in community economic development from 2002 to 2003. It was a wonderful experience. I met some great people over there, both in terms of fellow students, but also some of the faculty. A lot of the fellow students have become sort of lifelong friends, and some of the faculty have certainly been instrumental in my development and understanding over the last, I guess it's been at least a couple of decades now. So
yeah, it's very interesting because you play, like, now your role is such an interesting role, and I think it's something that a lot of students would like to do in the future. So I want to know, how did you come across the SCPA program, and why did you decide to study there?
To be honest, I did my undergraduate at McGill. It was a management undergraduate degree. It was a BCom in International Business and Strategic Management. And I also focused on international development studies. I was an international student coming from Pakistan. So after I did my bachelor's, I immigrated to Canada, and I was working in Montreal. That was like my home city, and I still consider it my home city. While I was working, one of the jobs I held was actually at Concordia. It was at the People's Potato. I don't know if it still exists.
It
But
does.
okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I worked with the People's Potato for a couple of years, if not more. And and back then, and even maybe now, it's a wonderful initiative, student funded. Cooking a great meal. It works as a workers' collective. And also the sister food store Le Frigo Vert on, I think, Mackay Street too. And there were other initiatives attached to it too. So being in the Concordia family as an employee, I saw and heard about the School of Public Policy. So they keep confusing it with another school I went to, SCPA, so the School of Community and Public Affairs. And I was quite curious about the program. I was interested in certainly doing a graduate program. I knew I wanted to do it somewhere in the context of community development, because I was working not only at People's Potato in a sort of an organized collective, but back then we were really working with a lot of other groups. At that time, it was the height of the Western engagement in Iraq, so we were really working with the Arab student collectives, the Palestinian students, the Muslim Student Society. We were trying to build bridges using People's Potato as our conduit, and not just at Concordia, but Montreal-wide, other campuses and whatnot. And to me, I found the SCPA program was maybe a wonderful academic program that helped me understand community engagement in some ways, how to formalize that role. Back then, I think also social credit was a new sort of a thing being talked about, and I wanted to understand that better, which was sort of taught within the context of the graduate diploma program. And it was right there. I was already on campus, so I applied. I got in. I did the graduate diploma in community economic development, and actually my big paper was on the people's potato and like my work there. And I'm blanking out a little bit. It's been a couple of decades, if not more. The
Yeah.
people's potato was my case study for a lot of my assignments within the graduate diploma program, and certainly the big sort of papers that I was supposed to do. I think in Eric Schragg's class, if I'm not mistaken, was also centered around the people's potato. So I managed to merge both my day job and my education into one initiative on the same campus, and it worked well for me.
That's so interesting. And it's very funny that you mentioned a lot of things that are still going on at Concordia and that still play such an important role. For example, People's Potato and Frigo Vert are still really present and in the same ways, like trying to build bridges between people. Like, for example, People's Potato and Frigo Vert have been so helpful in the past couple of months with like the Palestinian movement. And it's very interesting that it's always been that case since so long ago and it's just continuing on.
Absolutely. I think the way I see it is, irrespective of what your background is, what your even sometimes political orientations, we're all facing common struggles, and one can't fight for indigenous rights or climate rights or minority rights without being an ally with other people. And honestly, that was one of the best things about Concordia. And to be very honest, specifically at SCPA, what I found, people, my fellow students, the staff, the faculty, uh, encouraged it. If anything, you weren't looking at community engagement, community development in a vacuum. You were looking at it, and my project was specifically on the people's potato. That's what I centered on because that's what I knew best. But other people did all sorts of different programs. But I know it really helped us build. Like, still in touch with a lot of my fellow graduates. One of my friends and colleagues from then, Ariel Foster, is now a city councillor in Ottawa. She has continued her lifelong engagement with communities and socially progressive causes. I know others are still organizing, like Mubina Mughal in Montreal, or others who came as international students from various countries, all different parts of Africa. Like, they're still on my social media, so at least I have some knowledge of what they're doing, or Bangladesh or elsewhere. I think SCPA and the program and the environment at Concordia really helped us all mature as better citizens, better community members, better human beings.
I want to know what your understanding of it is. In your opinion, did the SCPA and like the CED program have the ability or like this reputation of bringing people together?
Actually, I would say yes, but in three ways. One, I think it was the diversity of people between Anglophones and Francophones, international students from all over the globe, local organizers, local students across Canada. I think it brought people together. People who were actually, most of us had full-time jobs, because I don't know how the program is now, but we would meet once a month over a Saturday and a Sunday, and that's how the classes were held. So it really allowed for a lot of people, even who lived outside of Ottawa, sorry, Ottawa, I'm saying I live in Ottawa now, but Montreal, to come in for that weekend to do the classes and everything. So first of all, the diversity of people, it brought us together. Secondly, I think the way I saw it bringing us together was certainly within the environment we lived in or worked in. So Montreal is where Concordia's house, the CD program, SCPA. So, whether it is around, like you mentioned, 2002 and 3 is right after 9/11. There's a lot of racialization and targeting of persons of color, Muslims, um, within all sorts of contexts. There is this heightened thinking around terrorism. Like, I think we really were working and using SCPA along with other organizations like People's Potato and other community groups, including a lot of Jewish groups, Indian, Pakistani, Ethiopian, all sorts of student society groups, and to build alliances, to build networks. So I think SCPA and that basement help provide a meeting space for all of us within the city to organize better around a variety of initiatives, including even in those early days. Remember, I had a couple of colleagues. One, she is of a First Nations community from northern Quebec. She was one of our colleagues over there. I'm still in touch with her through social media. And us learning about struggles of Indigenous communities at that time. That I think we're all lifelong learners. Nobody's an expert at anything, and you understand things better from people's struggles. And I think it was a safe space to do it. The third thing, to be very honest, was in the context of just a university environment. A lot of us may have been in an academic setting years ago, because like I said, a lot of us were working full time. Some were mature students, others were right out of undergrad, like myself. Just a couple of years after my undergrad, I started this program. So I think the other way of organizing was a diversity of lived experiences that were brought in under the umbrella of the CED program at SCPA in that basement, in that whole building, to be very honest. Um, from people who have had such rich experiences or who are still learning, and we could learn from each other. So I think not only just geographic diversity of the program, but employment diversity, lived experiences diversity, what struggles that you've been part of. I think it was very instrumental. Like I've always told, like I'm old enough now that I have nephews and nieces, and I tell them, a university or any academic program, it's great that you study what you want to study, but the learning that I did in all three of my degrees, Concordia was my second degree, is being in a academic environment, but making the friendships that you do, the activism that you get involved in, your politics maturing, the people that you meet. I think that gives much more growth than what you just learn in a classroom with assignments. It's as important as that. So, and SCPA and the CD program, I think, helped me mature as a socially progressive, conscientious human being, as much as I learned about community economic development and some of the core things in it, like social credit and economic theory and God knows what stats and everything, writing skills.
Absolutely. Honestly, this is also interesting to hear because you're the first person I've interviewed from alumni. So far, I've only interviewed professors and like staff. And so I would like to know a little bit about your experience in the classroom. If you have any memories you would like to share, or just how it was to be with other colleagues who often shared similar passions, although being different.
I think from what I can recall of my time in the CED program was the classes and the assignments weren't cumbersome. So for a lot of graduate level programs, it's, whether it's deadlines or the kind of assignments you have to do, it's not like we didn't have assignments or homework or papers to write, but people were coming from different walks of life with different experiences, different language skills, different, how they might have been out of an academic setting for decades and coming back in, or others like myself who had just finished their undergrad a couple of years prior. But I think within the actual program and the people there, first of all, maybe talking about the staff. I think the staff and the faculty, I think they were allies in our learning experiences. I can give you a laundry list of names of the profs, but I would be missing out them a lot of the other ones, so I won't go into names. But all in all, to say the faculty, I thought, really helped construct a program that encouraged the process of learning, debating, engaging with each other rather than sort of rote learning and assignments and strict grading schemes around that. Also, the discussions were very rich. I think I really appreciated that, irrespective of the course was, there was more of an onus about us speaking up and sharing and learning from each other rather than an assigned reading or an assigned assignment or anything like that. I do remember staff, and actually one of my colleagues, Vicky, who's now unfortunately passed away, she was a fellow a student who became staff for a long time. In afterwards, she was employed by SCPA. Like, just to give you an example, like the staff that existed at that time to the staff there is more recently. I'm not as familiar with the current staff. I know Anna might still be working there, who I know separately too, but just really helpful people. I think it was such a seamless assistance to be there. I remember I got this wonderful opportunity as a new immigrant to go to, I think, Jean-Pierre for a month for French immersion training, and I would have missed that month's classes. But the staff and the faculty made it so easy for me to catch up after I returned. So just very helpful in terms of people's lives, and you could not always be there. But I'm going to end it by the fellow students, which I think was the richest experience of all. As I mentioned when we started our conversation, it was just so lovely to meet the people that I met. Like I said, some I'm still in touch with, or actually most I'm in touch with. If not, we don't chat every day, but you see them on various social media. I think that's the way we are in 2024. That who are prospering, who've done great achievements. But even back then, learning from them, talking to them, becoming friends with them, hearing about their experiences, I think maybe was the most instrumental part of the program. The diversity of the people, the diversity of the experiences. There is nothing that can beat that. No assignment, no reading can be as good as that was.
That's very well said. Thank you. I want to know a little bit more about how you find that, because you said you did 3 degrees. One was your undergraduate at McGill in management, and then you did the CD, correct? What
Yeah.
was your third degree?
It was at UBC. It was an MA in Asia Pacific Policy Studies. And what's interesting is the name of that program has changed to an MA in Public Policy and Global Affairs. It's housed in the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs at UBC. And I went full circle. I was a student from the earlier version of that program, and I just was teaching at UBC last year in the same program. So I returned as a prodigal son to teach. I was a fellow. There is a fellowship program at UBC in that specific school, not for alumni of that program, but any mid-career Government of Canada official or anybody else can apply. My two other colleagues were someone who worked for the municipality in Sao Paulo, Brazil, someone else from Mongolia. So it's very international, that fellowship. But anyhow, it was UBC, and I went back to teach and research over there last year as a practitioner fellow, is what they call it, which is, I hope, something that the SCPA explores in terms of more engagement with the alumni. Because I can tell you, if my class is representative of it, our alumni from Concordia, especially from SCPA, I'm sure they've done great things. Every class that's graduated. But I just find, well, Concordia, as one of the 3 universities I went to, is the weakest in terms of engaging with alumni. But
Yes.
SCPA should have its own alumni outreach. And it's sometimes even as simple as maintaining an email of all of your alumni, reaching out to them occasionally, stuff like that, calling them in for a lecture. Like, the current CED program, how rich would it be if for some of the courses you invite as guest speakers some of the alumni over there? So there are various ways of engaging the alumni, but the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs at UBC is great at doing that. They hold their own alumni events, engaging, bringing them back in, all sorts of things, career mentoring to the current students, job assistance that the alumni can help their current students with. So um, my only sort of criticism, if I could use that term, of Concordia and SCPA is beyond a Facebook page for SCPA alumni. There's not much that happens from the SCPA, and maybe it's a thing because you don't have enough people, and it does take time and effort.
How do you find your three degrees helped each other? And do you find that the SCPA created a base for you to be able to go into UBC after?
To be very honest, so I'm going to share a little story. My oldest nephew is at university now. He's 19. He joined Carleton last year. And as an Asian, Pakistani origin boy immigrant, I think I come from that sort of a family setup, which a lot of South Asians might, where your parents think the only degrees worth doing are like a law, getting into a technical school like engineering, doctor, law,
Medicine, yeah.
exactly, very cliche things because from the generation they're coming from, you get a good income, you get respect, and I totally understand that. So I was almost forced into a management program at McGill because my parents are like, if we're going to pay international tuition fee, you're going to do what we tell you to do. I didn't really like it, but I helped create the international development studies minor at that time, and then did it myself as part. I'm like, which was in the Faculty of Arts, Humanities. It was a social sciences, which now at McGill has grown into a full-blown PhD program. But my common thread throughout my life, and the reason why I mentioned my nephew is I told him, do not get pressured by your grandparents or even your parents. You study what you want to study. Because the way my firm belief is when one studies what they want to study, they will always do well in it. When you're forced into a program, you may finish it, but your heart won't be in it. And when you work in a job that you sort of got the skills from that program, you would be miserable in it. So I did a corporate job for 1 year after my management degree, and I hated it. So I told my nephew, you want to be a plumber? You be a plumber if you want to be, but you be Canada's top plumber then. You want to do computer science? Do it because you want to do it, and then you will be the you have all what I ask of you is you be the best in whatever program you choose. In the end, he chose computer science. That's what he really wants to do. He wants to be in software development or something. Hallelujah. But he chose it himself. That story is to tell you that my thread in life was South Asia. That's a part of the world that's very important to me from a very early age in terms of the politics of that region, foreign policy, literature, poetry, history, anything to do from South Asia, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and the neighboring other 4 South Asian countries. Um, so whether it was my undergrad and expanding South Asia into it vis-a-vis the minor in international development studies, or even in the CED program, a fair bit of my work was looking at South Asia in the context of my papers, my assignments, even though it was people's potato, but I was looking at sort of South Asian impact over there with other people working there or immigration in the context of people from South Asia working in a anarchist workers collective, all sorts of things where I could weave in South Asia. As I did with my UBC program after this, I got into a public policy program in the South Asia governance and human rights stream. So I think my common passion was looking at a certain part of the world. For someone else, it could be climate change, it could be, IT, whatever in their life, whether in their academic programs or the jobs they do. But I found that in hindsight, the skills I learned at business school and essentially the CED program, which I sometimes loosely describe as a social work degree, even though it's not that, but it has elements of it, and then a public policy degree at UBC with the common thread of South Asia helped me get exactly the internship I wanted after I graduated from UBC, a full-time position in the world's premier think tank, International Crisis Group, as their South Asia analyst. I worked as a broadcast journalist in Pakistan, helping set up 2 English news channels, but also did a lot of consultancies in Sri Lanka, Nepal, elsewhere. And 15 years ago, I applied for this position as a senior or a South Asia analyst, informally an advisor in the department. Because in the Canadian Westminster parliamentary system, our prime minister has 2 offices: PMO, everyone's a political appointee, everyone currently is from the Liberal Party. PCO, where I work, were civil servants, were bureaucrats. PMs comes and go, but we're always there, till we retire. So I work on South Asia. So I just found that CED as a program helped me consolidate my interest vis-a-vis looking at communities, though from a different vantage point in terms of organizing, in terms of analyzing, in terms of um, the issues that matter in any community. And you can expand that to a national level, to a very micro level within the context of potentially like an immigrant community in Montreal or something like that. So I think all three of my degrees are different, as I mentioned: management, CED/social work, public policy, looking at global affairs. But I think one built on the other is how I see it. And the CED program, especially, I think helped me really realize that I could explore interest in an interdisciplinary degree, which it still is, and led me to do another interdisciplinary degree at UBC. That actually one does not have to confine themselves in a very tightly knit. You are only doing mechanical engineering or physics or political science or anthropology. You can do sort of an interdisciplinary degree that helps you learn about other fields of study or research while keeping your own interests. I remember another colleague who's unfortunately passed away from the CD program, Aziz, um, um, who made his CD program into a PhD at Concordia at that time, because you could do that. So the CD program, I find, is a great vehicle for all sorts of interests in terms of how you map out your own academic future, professional future, understanding communities, interlinking with different people. It's an open canvas that you can use to make your own life's painting, using that as sort of the base colors.
That was an amazing metaphor, and honestly, I really appreciate that because it is something that we think about a lot at the SCPA. It's something that a lot of students ask about how where to go next because SCPA does not have like a master's program in itself. So there's always the question of like, where do students go next? Where do we go next? Me, myself, this is my last year in the program and I don't know what I want to do as a next step. But that's why it's also very interesting to hear your experience of how you or other students have taken this and done more with it. So I am very, very
So
interested by that.
it's a disciplinary program, and honestly, you can take any strand out of that into, like maybe some of the courses or the readings or a class was more focused on sociology. Maybe you can take that after CD into a master's in sociology or a PhD, or anthropology or African studies or English literature, like anywhere, or even something more technical. Um, I think it's a really wonderful program. Back then, it was a 1 year program. I don't know if it's a 1 year program still, but all in all, to say that it was also short enough, it was compact enough, it was focused enough that it allowed you the freedom to do other things while using the program itself and SCPA, the school, to branch out into other interests. So, yeah, most people I know ended up doing some other grad degree or found a great job or did whatever. But I think SCPA provided them the time and the space and the venue to explore those interests.
Absolutely. And at the time, did your courses take place in the SCPA building on Mackay?
All of them.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous. We don't have classes there anymore, but
Oh,
do you mind telling us a little bit about that? Because now all of the classes for both SCPA and the CD program take place in the hall building. All of the annexes on Mackay are being renovated whatsoever. But even since I started in 2021, we've never had the rights to have classes in the SCPA building.
okay, no, no. Every single class was held there in the main level, second floor, basement, wherever, I forget exactly. But no, every single class was there. And I think that's why it gave more of a community feel, even to the students, the faculty, and the staff, because we were always in the same location. I think it made us feel like a family because we were always in the same, and it was a dedicated building just for the CED program rather than running around on campus. Well, maybe you're not running around, it's just the whole building, but everybody, at least in the 2002 to 2003 cohorts, being in the building on Mackay. Also, I think, all of our breaks in between the classes, they were like full days, Saturday, Sunday. We were still around each other on Mackay Street, not as busy. Smoker or not smoker, everybody was out on steps. We were all hanging out over there, getting to know each other better. I think the fact that it was within the building is very important. And I think, again, I'm going to give the example of the UBC degree that I did, where I taught last year as a practitioner fellow, adjunct professor, the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs. It is still housed in a dedicated building. All the classes largely are over there. If anything, it's incorporated another building into its sort of school. And I think that really helps build a kinship between the students, especially. I'm not saying you don't get to see your fellow students in the hall building in your classes, but the hall building is a giant beast with dozens of classes happening at the same time. So the minute the class might be over, when people start leaving, you just sort of wave and you say goodbye. When we would finish our classes or are halfway through or have a break or a lunch break, we were still in a small compact space that nobody else was in. It was only people who were part of the SCPA family. So I think it helped build a deeper friendship and kinship.
First created 45 years ago in 1980, SCPA is a school within Concordia University, offering a unique learning experience meant for those who are interested in community, society, and policy. Our programs are based in community engagement and experiential learning and have led to precious friendships, dedication, and passion.
Over the past few months, we have been interviewing alumni, past principals, and anyone who had an impact on the school or who has been impacted by the school. These interviews were done in hopes of hearing these memories straight from the people who lived them.
Thank you for joining us. We hope these videos show you how unique and exceptional a place SCPA is.